Yeah, we talked about this because you were like, yeah, we have to get the trial for Showtime. And I'm like, I am a pirate. I will get you 20.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, do you remember the second episode of the first season where they reveal, like...
No.
Okay, say all right.
Hello, and welcome back to Rewatching Home Movies, a weekly watch-along podcast where three friends break down the 1999 animated series, Home Movies. My name is Tim, and I'm obsessed with home movies.
My name's Adele, and I'm a home movies newbie.
And my name's Marcin, and I've never seen home movies.
Home Movies Season 2, Episode 4, titled Business and Pleasure. Original air date January 27th, 2002 on Adult Swim. Written by Brendan Small and Bill Broaddus and cast. Directed by Lauren Bouchard and produced by Melissa Barton-Galsky. Synopsis for this episode: Jason and Melissa fight for a bigger role in Brendan's latest movie. Meanwhile, Eric helps Paula with her job search.
So, where's the pleasure in that title?
Fish lips.
The fish. Because, like I said, there's a lot of business going on, but I didn't see anyone having, like, any fun, really.
The pleasure would be when Jason and Brendan were hanging out at the pool. Not supposed to talk about business.
Yeah, but Brendan had he had a side eye on Jason the entire time.
Understandable.
Yeah.
So we will jump into this episode, but first, let's jump into the Creative Corner, shall we? The Creative Corner, of course, a Creative Corner, doodly-doo. Holy shit, Bob. That was rude. I didn't even give him the cue. Okay, Creative Corner, who wants to go first?
You.
I do. All right, I'm going to try to keep this short as I can. This one is a little more serious, and I'm going to be a little bit vulnerable for a minute. And I will say, I don't know if this is a rule for a Creative Corner or not, but I'm doing it. I'm going to repeat a Creative Corner. Yeah, audible gasp indeed.
Pearls are clutched.
Clutch them harder, baby.
You've got pearls?
Yeah.
Somewhere.
My Creative Corner for this episode is going to be this podcast, which was my very first Creative Corner. Aww. If you guys remember, I don't want to timestamp this episode. Today's Saturday. We do backlog episodes. I believe, I'm not 100%, but I just feel like this is the first episode that we're recording since everything dropped of like the interview with Chris, the season 1 recap and stuff like that. And I believe this is the first time we're recording because I have definitely felt a shift as far as this podcast. And by that, it's a couple things. The big thing being the amount of feedback that I have gotten from the podcast, and not just from friends and family. I'm getting feedback from complete strangers. Mm-hmm. And it's very weird to me. So I just want to give a big shout out to all of our new listeners. I've gotten like emails and messages on Reddit, people saying like very nice and very positive things. And it just blows my mind a little bit. And it feels so good because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, I'm not trying to like downplay us or anything, but we're nobody. We're just a few people making a podcast, goofing around, having fun, and talking passionately about a show that we like. It's been really cool. I don't think people understand when you reach out to especially a smaller content creator and you even say, hey man, I really enjoy what you're putting out there. Keep it up. It's stuff like that like when I'm in the 7th hour of editing the audio on an episode, or I'm on my 3rd breakdown for the week, and it's just like, you know, you get to that point where you're like, why am I doing this? Is anybody even listening or caring? And I slowly learned that, yeah, people are listening and people do care. I want to give a very quick highlight to one specific email that I got. It was actually from a gentleman named Adam. And he started out, he's like, dude, I absolutely love your podcast. Home Movies is probably one of my favorite shows, so your podcast is perfect for me. He actually goes on to explain, he has his own podcast called The Sister Wives Professor. We looked into it, and it's like a really big podcast.
Oh, yeah.
And it's so funny because even in his email, he's like, yeah, I cover the show Sister Ways from an academic perspective, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, if you would ever want a guest on your show or anything, you know what I mean? Like, he so quickly was like, yeah, I do this thing. It's whatever. Listen, the thing you're doing, I love this. I don't know. It just adds a lot of validity, I think, to what we're doing. I had the gentleman who wrote our theme song. I saw him this week at an open mic, and he is like, hey man, as somebody who like does music and has done podcasts, he's like, I hear the amount of like love and effort you put into this. Again, it's like hearing stuff like that really, I think, pushes us to continue, not only to continue do what we're doing, but to have fun doing it too. So that's going to bring me to kind of my second point of this creative corner, which is you guys, my co-hosts. I'm pretty sure when I did this for my creative corner the first time, I expressed to you that how excited I was to do this project because I love both of you so much, like genuinely. And obviously I love this show so much. So to share something I love with people I love, can't even really consider it work. I know I've spoken to Adele, kind of off the pod. And I guess we should clarify, because I don't know if this has ever explicitly been said, but the reason we started the podcast in July and have chosen the format of weekly releases is because we need this podcast to end next year around July or August, because we're getting married in October of next year.
Yeah, we are.
I'm not sure if people know that or not. So to do like a every other week or to extend it, we kind of had to go into this knowing that there was going to be, for this format, a little bit of an expiration date. And we did that on purpose because, like, once the podcast is over, we're shifting into,
Falls deep into wedding stuff.
Exactly. So to take on a project and do it with my fiance when we know, we have this coming up, I'll be the first to admit this project takes up a lot of my time. A lot of my free time. I spend so much time editing and getting stuff ready. And I just appreciate both of you because obviously, Adele, like, you allow me to do this and you are very kind with allowing me the time I need to do this project. And Marcin, I really appreciate the fact that you and I can talk about this podcast and like the numbers game and, this, that, and the other. And podcasts are different for everybody because there's this discussion of podcasts of if it's a hobby or if it's like a job. And I don't want this to be a job. I don't ever want this to feel like it's a job for us. And it is a hobby to an extent, but dude, sometimes I got to talk about numbers or have that awkward conversation of like, hey, maybe we shouldn't talk about X, Y, or Z on the podcast or whatever. And just our ability to have those conversations and then just be able to shift right back into just chilling, being friends and all that shit. Like, I don't think I can express you to enough how much I appreciate that. And it makes this whole process, again, like with random people reaching out to me and us and giving us this positive feedback, being able to have these conversations and talk about numbers and what downloads mean to us. And, hey, look at this graph. And did you know this episode's almost at 100 downloads? Like, all that kind of stuff I absolutely love to share with you guys, and I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to share it because both of you could easily be like, yeah, whatever, dude, that's fine. Those are numbers on a website. It's whatever, but you guys are you just make it so accessible for me to bring this stuff to you, and I cannot thank you enough. Just like all the new listeners that have been reaching out to us, like, I can't thank you guys enough because like stuff like that helps us push through when we're at our lowest or the workload gets a little heavy. And I just want to throw that out there. That is my creative corner for this week.
I cannot express to you guys, as someone who's been on the internet trying their hardest to see some sort of validation or recognition from anybody, to do this podcast with people who do care about trying to make things better and maybe not understand the number game or how this all works, but just to be in a room with you guys with or without mics is always so fun for me. It's a type of relationship I've wanted to have since I was very young, so I'm very happy to just be in your presence all the time. I love you guys so much, more than I can ever express, and I am very glad that we decided to do a creative project together.
Yeah. Big same, dude. Big same. Like, this podcast is such an awesome reason for us to hang out all the time. Oh yeah, we also record stuff and throw it out there. Like, that's just kind of the secondary product of us getting to hang out.
Well, I appreciate it for all the reasons that you guys both said, but also coming out of not to get too sad, but coming out of like the pandemic and everything, like my social life took like a huge hit. My confidence took a huge hit. My everything took a huge hit. And just being able to have my friends back for one, and to have Tim help me through life, and just to have like the fact that like we have a schedule where we see each other regularly, like it has helped my mental health and my healing immensely. So the fact that we are documenting it in a sense and putting it on the internet for us to look back on when we're old and crusty, it's very sentimental to me.
Yeah. I want people to know that for us, this podcast means so much more than just hanging out and watching home movies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
Adele,
being said,
Well, God
silly
damn it.
thing is next.
I feel like yours was great, and you wanted to go last because yours is great, so I'm gonna be in a great sandwich, and mine is just gonna be a big letdown.
Yours isn't going to be a letdown.
So my creative corner, I'm surprised I haven't talked about this sooner, because I've been obsessed with it for quite a few years now, but there is an art installation. They're about to put up their 5th permanent art installation, and this is the company of Meow Wolf. Let's go. And this shit, they go to whatever state they choose to put up their new art installation. They find local artists from the area, and they just say, fucking do whatever the fuck you want. And like the shit these people come up with are insane. I remember the first time I came across them, I believe it was their New Mexico location, and you go in and it just looks like a regular house, and as you explore, you go through like portals, and it opens up into this beautiful artistic world that's all encompassing, very, what's the word I'm looking for?
Immersive,
very immersive. My favorite installment, which is on my bucket list, is the Omega Mart, which is just it's a giant grocery store. The more you go in, the weirder it gets. They have one that's a train station, and the newest one that they're about to launch at the end of October of this year is a radio station. So you walk in, their catchphrase is change your frequency. And so you go in and it just looks like a regular old radio station, and then it opens up into this beautiful world, and I'm super excited. And this one is focused more on music, so it's more of like it's more of like a sound ambiance artistic experience. And I just want to go to every single one of them, but they're expensive and they're all over the country. So
yeah. Well, low key, like we're trying to figure out where we're gonna go for our honeymoon.
Yeah.
And the only reason Vegas is like on the radar is we want to go to Omega Mart so badly.
Yeah. There's 2 in Texas. The new one's gonna be in Texas, and I'm like, do I want to go to Texas just for that? But Vegas, I'll go to Vegas for sure.
Can I say people from Texas? Or that's a SpongeBob reference. I went to something similar. It's like called Whim, but it was an art installation where they let artists just go wild, especially during the pandemic. They're like, come on in, just make this stuff. So that type of immersive art is so fun and so cool to be a part of it, because it's like you're stepping into a painting.
Yes.
It's so cool.
I love escapism. So if I feel like I have been transported to a different world, sign me up, because I'm tired of this one. But yeah, specifically at Omega Mart, they'll have like concerts. They'll have concerts at all of them, but just to go to a concert in that environment would probably be like insane.
Oh, that sounds so good.
Yeah. Okay, that's my.
I think that was a great creative corner.
Thanks.
Yeah. This podcast is a very like artist forward podcast. We support artists in this house. So.
Yes.
That's why when earlier we were saying about reaching out to smaller content creators and just like being like, listen, man, I've loved your work, and that is so validating, and it allows a lot of artists to keep going and to want to continue, because otherwise it just feels like you're throwing it out into the void. And that's why I love the Creative Corner especially, is because just I have so many artists that I'm so anxious and terrified to actually reach out and be like, hey, I like your stuff. So to me, this is kind of a nice little highlight to show all the people that I care about.
Love that.
Oh, yeah.
Speaking of which, my partner, Nick, is an artist, and the other day we've been reorganizing the apartment, and we found their portfolio of all the art that they've been working on over the past, like, I don't know, since they've been an artist, and we found so much stuff, and they're in a state where we're all just so busy with work and whatnot that they can't really perform. and do art, and that's something that I think we all feel that, where it's like, God, I want to do art so bad, but I have no energy. And looking back at all their art, I just realized how amazing they are as an artist and how skilled they are. And we went to the Art Institute the other day, and they were just telling me all about these different paintings and how they're made and their love for it. They are such a wonderful artist, and they actually have started, I guess this is a reveal of some sort, but we want to try and pitch the graphic novel for Puzzle Valley this season 1. And I think I showed you one of the pages for the art thing. Yeah. And so we were going through that, and they're just a wonderful artist. So my creative corner is my partner.
Yes, we love that.
They have an Etsy page where they sell pins that they get manufactured and then they produce. And one of the pins that they actually most recently made, because they just got top surgery, so they made this trans pin of a biblically accurate trans angel with top surgery scars.
Nice.
I love that.
Here, I'm going to pass it around.
Oh, yeah, I do.
It's not the only one they have, but that's the one that's going strictly to their top surgery fund to kind of to help the medical bills and whatnot.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's so dope.
And they have also so many different other pins. They have a lot of ghost pins that have different reactions. Like there's a sad ghost and a happy ghost, and they have bat pins that scream, stuff like that. They have a lot of them. They have a Morrowind one, which is a Christmas thing. One of their best sellers is from Our Flag Means Death. They have 2 versions of that. They have a Jim pin, which is the knife, and then they have the pie.
Nice. That's such a good show.
Yeah, so I just wanted to talk about them. In fact, they gave me a promo code to use for our podcast. It's all caps, one word, gnome spotting, 10% off.
Oh, cute.
Yes.
On their Etsy page.
Now, do we have their Etsy page on our Linktree?
Not yet, but we will by the time this episode drops.
Yeah, so anybody who wants to get a pin, I actually talked to them about the possibility of them trying to fund manufacturing for a home movies pin and doing that. So we were thinking about that. I wanted to bring it up on the pod to ask you guys.
Oh, that'd be so dope.
Amazing, yeah.
And I was thinking not just like a home movies based off this podcast, like about the actual show. Yeah. So something that we really like from the episodes, maybe something that the community likes, something that anybody to design this pin and to come up with something for it. But I just wanted to highlight Nick because they're my partner and I love them so much and they're a fantastic artist.
Yes, we love Nick.
Yes, that is awesome. So gnome spotting is the code for their Etsy page. What's the Etsy page?
WikiNix. It's WIKKINICKS is the Etsy page. It's got a bunch of pins that they have there that showcase all the things that they work on it. They don't just make pins, they do commissions and they make a lot of stuff. That's one of the pages they have.
That's dope. So promo code gnome spotting, get you 10%
promo
off.
Code. Love the promo
Perfect.
code.
We'll get that on the Linktree. Oh my gosh, speaking of the Linktree, I think some people have gotten a hold of us through the Linktree. So Linktree/RHMpod, we have an email. Please, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, fan art, I will happily accept fan art. You can get us through the Linktree, or, dude, you can email us directly, rhmpod@gmail. Yeah, any questions, please feel free to reach out. We're small content creators, dude. I read everything, good, bad, or indifferent. Please.
Yeah. I was going to say thank you. Adele showed it to me when we were recording Puzzle Valley 2000, but the logo art for season 2 that you had my cousin Shannon make, just like without even telling me, which super dope. I am so... I really love the new art so much. I love the old art too, but like this new one, knowing that Shannon made it, and especially because like I have the video camera, that's really special for me.
Yeah, she was super on board. She was super game. I think she was even more excited that I told her it was a secret from you. And if I'm being completely honest, let's get into the new logo. She didn't have to do that. She is so busy.
Oh yeah,
and she literally just announced she got a job as an art director on a project, but she was posting like daily, multiple projects, huge projects. She did the design for the band Korn when they came through this area. She did their shirt design for this area.
Mm-hmm. She's fantastic. Fantastic artist that I have so much respect for.
After we got the logo, I was like, she did not have to do this. She had no business. But yeah, shout out, she's on the Linktree as well. ShanCon Art for the new refresh of our logo. So, yeah, another thing we haven't gotten to talk about on the pod because this is the first episode we've recorded since season 2 has dropped. Are you guys ready to jump into this episode?
Let's go.
Yeah.
Let's do it. This was business and pleasure. No commentary on this one, so we're just jumping in. This episode starts, we're already in a movie. According to the clapboard, this movie is called Blind Date, and we're recording a scene 4, take 1. Right? So we have Brendan and Melissa. They appear to be on a blind date together. They're sharing horror stories of dating, and both of them are saying they never go on blind dates. In the middle of the conversation, Jason, the waiter, comes out and starts wiping down the table. He knocks over the candle, and that's when Brendan is like, all right, cut. What are you doing? So he tells Brendan, hey, I'm just doing background action. They do take 2, and Brendan's character is asking Melissa what she thinks about the chicken, and she comments, it's very funny, and blushes. The whole bit is they're asking about the chicken in like a clever way to, gauge each other's interest in each other. Jason pops in again and asks if they're ready to order. The chicken is on their plate. They've already ordered.
The dead chicken. Was that actual chicken or is it like a rubber chicken?
I would assume a rubber chicken.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
With X's for eyes.
Take 4, Brendan is asking Melissa's character if she thinks she'd be willing to move in with this chicken. She's like twirling her hair and she's like, well, I think so, but I need to get to know how the chicken feels about me first. Jason comes in to give them their complimentary 3-bean salad. That's when Brendan kind of gets frustrated and he's like flipping through the script. Like, where does it say complimentary 3-bean salad?
He pulls out a book and just slams it on the table and starts flipping through it.
I think it's take 15. He comes in with water. Take 31. He has the sombrero with sizzling fajitas made at your table. So now we cut to Brendan and he's talking to Jason, explaining this is not a scene about a waiter. Jason pushes back and says, well, it could be a movie and we can call it Waiter Minute.
Yeah.
That's actually a good title.
Dude, Jason has 2 like amazing titles in this episode alone.
He does. Just for context, I used to work as a background extra. I would just get like freelance jobs and I would work as a background extra. And one of the mottos that goes around when you're working in film is like, hurry up and wait.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're just waiting for the entire time. So we get to know each other very quickly, all the extras. And we all have these stories where we are trying to go into business for ourselves, where we're trying to make the most of our background to kind of be on camera and to do this or to do that. And watching Jason just here's my moment. I got to come in and just like throw some water down. Here's the fajitas. Famously, Brad Pitt in one of his first extra things spoke to another extra as a waiter and was like, would you like some water? The actress looked at him and then the director was like, cut! Yeah, if you do that again, you're off the set. So I
had no idea. I never heard that.
Yeah. So just watching Jason do that, I was like peeling my eyes like, no, I've been there.
Well, it's pretty obvious Jason wants to be more than just the waiter. Brendan tells him the next film he can have a bigger role, but right now he's just the waiter. And the movie focuses on Brendan and Melissa. That's when Jason gets the bright idea that Brendan should come over for a sleepover. Dude, Brendan is he's suspicious at first, for sure. Not very keen on the idea. He tells him we should not be mixing business and pleasure. And Jason claims, no, it's not like that. And Brendan's like, okay, I'll go to your house. I'll eat your food. I'll swim in your pool. I'll play with your toys. But we do not discuss work.
Can I just express like the chemistry between Melissa and Brendan during the date? Mm-hmm. I just want to express this for a note I have later, but they have a lot of good chemistry between each other.
Sure.
Like she's blushing.
Is it good chemistry or are they both just good actors?
No. That's what yes, like in the scene, those two characters have good chemistry.
Right.
Because like we see Melissa and Brendan off camera. They're good friends. I'm not trying to make any point on that. I have a different note for later, but they have electric chemistry as far as these two characters.
I agree. And I think that just speaks to like for 8-year-olds, they're both really good actors.
Yeah. I mean, they're in the past episode when Melissa and Jason kind of had that same kind of repartee when he's like, what did he say? Something about calling himself daddy?
Does mommy like what she sees?
Yeah, some shit like that.
That was to Jason when he was doing the jazz stuff or when he had the afro on?
Yeah, was that the same episode as the jazz?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that was right before.
Yeah. So I don't know, Jason just really confused me in this episode.
Yeah. Well, he confuses me because what is one of our favorite Jason lines up until this point? We're not here to make friends.
We're here to make movies.
And it's like he is breaking his own cardinal rule in this.
No, he is trying to make movies where he is the star by using his friends.
He's being a manipulative piece of shit is what he's being.
He really is.
He is.
He is.
So Jason excitedly tells him that it's going to be great. And you know what, Brendan? You can have top bunk. And that's when Brendan asks if he has a brother. And he's like, no, my fat her. No, he says it's his father's sleeps in the top bunk. So next scene, we see Paula. She's on the phone. She's throwing a bunch of random items out of her refrigerator, claiming that she will find it. She's actually really good at this kind of thing. So we see she's talking to Eric, and he asks her, like, finding smells. And she's like, yeah, I once found a 3-week-old peanut butter sandwich in Brendan's T-shirt drawer by sniffing the air. Eric claims he once found a banana peel in the garbage by sniffing the garbage. So Paula hits back that she found an apple core in Brendan's underwear drawer. All these are just Brendan hiding food in his dresser, apparently.
Brendan sounds like an awful child to be a parent for.
Eric trumps them all and says, well, I once found a needle in a haystack.
Eric is such a dad.
It's everything.
Trying to have a conversation with him, he's just cracking jokes.
And then did you notice one of his jokes too? I think it's when she's like, did you need help? And he's like, what, finding smells? He like licks his finger and gives a little like 1 point for himself. like he's keeping track of the dad jokes.
God, I love Eric so much.
Oh, Eric is the best. Paula admits she was let go and is looking for a new job. Eric is very nice and says, why is it the good people who always get hurt? He confesses he's never been fired, and Paula calls him lucky. And Eric kind of knee-jerk reaction. He's like, so are you.
That was me at Walgreens yesterday.
Oh, my goodness.
The lady's like, you're all set? And I was like, you too?
She's like, where am I going?
You're not going anywhere.
And
You're still on
we
shit.
walked out, and Adele's like, oh, my God, that's so embarrassing. And I'm like I haven't gotten handed my food at a restaurant, and they're like, enjoy your meal. I'm like, you too. Well, like, but because you got to eat eventually. When you do, you better enjoy it because I'll enjoy this now, but you enjoy that later.
Enjoy the movie. You too. Oh, am I coming with?
Yeah, you're sitting next to me.
Usually they ignore it, but the one time I did do that at a movie theater, the guy turned to me, he's like, oh, am I coming with? And I was, you couldn't just let me be alone? Now I'm thinking about this forever.
Someone who's been on the opposite end of that, working at Blockbuster, enjoy your movie. Yeah, you too. When that happens to me, I go, and then never think about it ever again.
Idiot.
No. I'm like, yeah, we are all awkward, aren't we?
Yeah, a little bit.
But yeah, as soon as he says it, he gives himself a face palm. He backtracks and admits he's like, I don't know why I said that. He tells you he doesn't need any help at the moment, but he's got connections. So claiming he sold some houses to some pretty important business people. Some not so pretty. And that he'll be happy to make a few phone calls. Paula thanks him. And then she says, okay, I'll get back to finding my smells. Eric even tells her, I'll let you go. And then he's like, no, that's not like that.
But in a good way.
Yeah. So the next scene we have Brendan and Jason. We're at Jason's neighbors. So Jason confesses, I thought when I said pool, you knew that I meant the kiddie pool at my neighbor's house.
Love that Jason is wearing flippers for a kiddie pool.
Jason offers lemonade. He offers him some cheese balls. I think Brendan says, no, 4 is my limit.
Can't relate.
Same.
Did you catch he offers him pigs in a blanket, uncooked?
I wrote that down. Pigs in a blanket, uncooked. You fucking crazy person.
Right. So pigs in a blanket, right? That's like the little hot dog weenies
Yeah.
wrapped up in
A croissant.
So raw would be an uncooked cocktail weenie and uncooked croissant.
Like
Yummy.
a dough.
They're swimming, so it's probably hot outside. It's been sitting out there. Yeah, that sounds great. Brendan says no, he is stuffed Ola. Jason asks him, hey, you having a good time? We haven't talked about movies once. And that's when Jason turns to Brendan and tells him he really likes Melissa. She's a good kid.
This part.
Bad actor,
So
a
mean.
good kid.
Someone defend Jason to me right now. I dare you.
No.
Yeah. Jason's attitude towards Melissa is...
Jason was a real stinker this episode.
He was a little bit of a stinker.
He wasn't even gross. He was just,
He was gross because he was such a stinker that you could smell it.
yeah.
Get the spray out.
He had a little bit of a main character syndrome going on.
I think so.
A little bit. This is the first time we've seen Jason's room and seeing all the posters.
Yeah.
We'll get to that
Yep.
a little bit later, but this was probably the worst episode for Jason. Worst one.
Because I absolutely expect not the best grade for Jason this episode, and he was not even gross.
Yeah.
So,
At most, we see his butt crack, but that's not gross. That's just like
His untanned butt crack.
yeah. It's just like he plays Magic the Gathering. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Brendan pushes back on the statement immediately. Jason says she's been struggling lately with her work, and Brendan says he doesn't want to have this conversation. Jason says they need to do a new movie. They can't do a romantic comedy because Nick Nolte and Julia Roberts killed it. I did look up. I forgot what it was called, but there was a Nick Nolte, Julia Roberts movie, and it was like a rom-com. And not only did it do really bad, but apparently Nick Nolte was like a huge asshole to Julia Roberts on set, and it like really kind of like messed her up and stuff.
Damn, let's get him.
And then she ended up doing, what was that, Pretty Woman?
Yeah.
Like a year or two later, which is like the rom-com of all rom-coms.
Right. Never saw
So-
it, but yeah.
I've also never seen that. Put it on the list.
Yes.
The one that Nick Nolte and Julia Roberts did is called I Love Trouble, apparently, from like 94. It's got like 5 stars out of 10 on IMDb. But yeah, apparently it is like notorious, like how bad he was to her on set.
What year was that?
1994.
Okay.
I was just a baby.
Yeah, so this would have been like 5-6 years after that. They,
So topical.
yeah, still use it as a reference. So Brendan like does awkwardly like he's like, no, well, I agree with the whole Nick Nolte rom-com thing, but still pushes back on Jason and say that about Melissa. Jason is like adamant they should do a buddy flick instead, maybe about 2 prisoners who break out of prison and become guards in the same prison, and they can call it irony.
Was this the second banger of a title?
I think so. Irony about 2 prisoners who escape prison and then get a job as guards at the same prison they just escaped from. Set in prison, and it's called Irony, and it's genuinely ironic. I think that for an 8-year-old it's a good movie title.
Okay, when you over-explained it, I agree.
Those are all my best jokes in comedy, too. It's like, hey, here's my joke. Now let me explain for 3 times as long why that's actually funny, even though nobody laughed. So Brendan tells Jason just forget it, and that's when Jason tells him he can also play a split personality. He does it. He plays Jason and George at the same time, and Brendan is very upset. He's like, Jason, you promised you wouldn't talk about work. Brendan grabs the phone to call his mom to go home, and Jason is like, well, what about the sleepover? And Brendan's like, no, you violated the agreement, so no. And dude, Jason does that weird kid thing. He's like yelling at himself. He's like hitting himself in the head.
Oh, when he started hitting himself in the head. No.
Jason needs therapy.
I think even at the end, he's like, see what you did, George? Brendan hates us now.
I did like the sun visor bit to make George look more ominous.
I did write that down, light folder, and I was like, use for later.
The light folder. The light folder and the feather scar.
The George character idea was like cool. I liked the little doodle they had when he had his teeth up. Like that was a funny line and whatnot. But like I started being scared a little bit during this.
Oh, Brendan even says like, you're scaring
me
me,
out,
dude.
yeah.
Yeah, you're creepy, man.
He's having a bit of like this is the first time we've seen Jason like go really unhinged.
So the next scene, we're at the small residence. We hear the phone ring, and I think it shows a clock, and it's like 4:09 a.m. 4:08 or 4:09. So Paula answers the phone. It's Jason. He like, have you ever called a friend's house and disguised your voice a little like, is Marcia in there?
No. Have you?
No, I did that once. I thought it was my friend's brother that answered, but it was his dad, and I was like, is Adam home? And he's like, use your regular voice. And I'm like, I'm sorry, is Adam home?
Your voice got screwed. Is Adam there?
Actually, is Adam home?
I don't like comparing the generations, but before caller ID happened, that was a very fun thing. Me and Eddie used to do prank calls, and one of the time, Eddie just to someone who just refused to hang up the phone, we were sitting there and I was losing my mind in the background, and Eddie just kept going, and I think it was like 5 or 7 minutes later, and he's still talking to this guy who's really annoyed. He's like, "Who are you, kid?" He's like, "I bet you're wondering what I'm drawing right now. It's a cat." And just like going off, and it was just so fun. Like, I miss prank calls. You can't do that nowadays. They'll track you down, they'll dox you. They're like, "Here's your IP." And then they'll post it on Twitter.
X. We're all crying on the inside.
So Jason asks if Brendan is home, and Paula's like, "You need to go to sleep, Jason." He says he's not really that tired, and Paula asks him if he's heard of melatonin. And Jason replies, "Well, maybe they're on different circadian rhythms."
I do want to say, because neither of you have seen Twin Peaks, but when they were showing Jason in his room and he was hanging upside down.
Twin Peaks.
You have?
Yeah, like the original and the new season that was on Showtime.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, we talked about this because you were like, "Yeah, we have to get the trial for Showtime," and I'm like, "I am a pirate. I will get you Twin Peaks."
Yeah, that's right. Okay. Well, do you remember the second episode of the first season where they reveal like?
No.
Okay. So, all right.
That was so long ago.
Okay, all right. But Dale Cooper in the second episode, the opening while they're revealing him, there's a long like pan of this camera while he's on the phone with somebody, and he's just hanging upside down in the doorway, the same exact way that Jason was.
I would not be surprised if that was like a nod to that scene in Twin Peaks.
I love that when Jason like lets go and falls down, and there's just a bunch of pillows and blankets.
Right.
Like, he's done this before.
His leg's got to be jacked because he went running earlier in the day and.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if you caught it, but when he said he's in a different circadian rhythm, Paula's like, barbiturates? Like, asks him, like, have you tried taking barbiturates? Like, strong drugs. Jason tells her that he just has a higher metabolism. So Paula's like, "I don't want to talk to you anymore." And Jason even asks, "Did I wake you up?" And Paula's like, "No, I was sleeping." So at this point, Paula yells for Brendan, who is obviously sleeping as well. He picks up the phone and very tiredly says hello. And Jason asks Brendan if he was sleeping. And Brendan's like, "Yeah, it's 4:00 in the morning." Jason's like, "Yeah, you're right. I've already taken a jog." So Brendan, very tired, tells him, like, "Dude, I'll just talk to you at school tomorrow." And Jason, tells him he wants to apologize for the sleepover and asks Brendan if they're still friends. And I think you caught it. He's holding a picture of Brendan, Jason, and Melissa.
And his thumb is over Melissa's.
His thumb is over Melissa's
What a
face.
jerk.
See, now if we didn't think that Melissa and Jason didn't have a good friendship at all, we definitely know now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, talking about Jason's room, are we going to forget about the fact that all of the movie posters all over the walls?
He's got pictures of his face all over him.
Yeah, because he clearly wants to be the main character of a movie.
That is very true.
Also, they made Brendan's butt very butt-like in this scene.
So, yeah, he asked Brendan if they're still friends, and Brendan says, "Yes, of course. Well, I'll just talk to you at school tomorrow." And Jason's like, "Okay, I just have one more question." And he asks him, "Have you seen George?" And that's when Jason pops up as George and says, "Brendan, I'm right here."
Have you ever done that, like when you were a kid specifically? Have you ever done the "I have a split personality," like when you're playing with people and you just pretend like that you're someone else and you're like scary?
I'd have to reach into the recesses of my mind.
Yeah,
for
I don't think so. I don't think I ever did like the split personality thing.
Maybe I grew up as the weird kid, so
what
maybe
was your other personality?
Just like mean and angry.
Yeah, just like I would do a voice and I'm going hey, freak them out. Just so this is going to sound sadder than it is, but like when you're growing up and you don't have many friends, any attention is good attention. So you just start acting out, and that's where that type of thing comes from.
I feel that.
Well, the next scene, it's the following morning. Brendan is eating breakfast with Paula and Josie. And
props to that steam animation during their breakfast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he had like
steam
steam coming off his oatmeal.
Yeah. The UPN5 would never.
They would never. It was not in the budget to do steam. They wanted to. It was in the notes. Steam this oatmeal. And UPN's like, never. We don't kill dogs and we don't steam oatmeal.
And we don't say Jesus.
Yeah.
But we show butts.
And we don't pay you for a fifth episode. What? Paula tells Brendan to finish his oatmeal. And he says he's got bigger things to worry about than oatmeal. And Paula verifies that, yeah, you're still upset about, Jason and the phone call last night. So Brendan confesses that he needs to have a long talk with Jason, which is hard because he has a very short attention span.
Same.
And then immediately showcases his very short attention span by being like, oh, look, I can balance the spoon on my bowl. And then he balances on his nose, too, because why not? So Paula's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about, and this is why you need to finish your oatmeal. Brendan is like, explain. And Paula's like, oatmeal contains oatmeal, which contains a lot of fiber, which will fill you up. And when your body's full, it functions better. And your brain will work because it doesn't have to worry about your body. And you think clearly and you're less stressed. And almost like kind of proud of herself. She's like, and there you go. There it is. I did it.
He was spilling orange juice into his mouth.
yeah.
He was pouring a large amount of orange juice into his oatmeal, yes.
It was almost like he was explaining. It was kind of like a visual of how fiber works or doesn't work.
So Brendan is like, yeah, the oatmeal helps with stress. And Paula says yes. And you know what else? And she attacks Brendan with a bunch of hugs and kisses.
He did not like that.
No, he got frustrated.
I mean, I don't know how it is for boys, but I never had that with my mom. Like any affection, I was like, sure, like because I didn't get it very often. But like as young boys, do you guys ever remember being like, no, mom, don't hug me? That's
I think you do hit a
cool."
point as a boy where you're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, your mom.
My mom didn't give me affection. I begged for it.
I feel that, yeah.
But there was that point where like other kids would make fun of you for any type of affection your parents would give you. So like I've seen like other people like push away their parents. So it's definitely a normal thing. I'm in a gender communications class in college right now, and we talk about this very same thing where with boys you don't give a lot of affection, whereas with girls you treat them like they're glass.
Oh,
yeah.
Did you just quote my dad right there? Girls are like glass.
Anyway.
My dad's teaching your gender communications class.
What a mystery! What a reveal!
Turn of events.
He's actually woke.
Oh my god! I mean, that would shock me, but good for him. I guess if that's the situation.
Why can I see my dad definitely teaching a gender?
I could see that.
So Brendan turns this around on Paula and asks her how the job hunting is going, and she says it's going pretty good. And Brendan says, you know what would help job hunting is one of Brendan Small's famous smoocheroonies. Gives her a huge kiss on the face while covered in orange juice. Celebrates while saying, yes, I have not brushed my teeth in 4 months.
Brendan was the gross one the whole time.
I literally are, which is a gross thing that usually we hear Jason say.
Yeah, when he said that, I kind of froze for a second. I was like, what a fantasy when you were a kid. It's like, oh.
So the next scene, we're at school. Jason and Brendan are sitting together. Jason is giving Brendan a very poorly wrapped gift box, and Jason encourages him to open it. Brendan tells him they need to talk about everything, and he has a very short attention span. Obviously, that's when Jason points out that race car is the same forwards and backwards. Brendan kind of like tries to move past it and then like quickly realizes like, wait, you're right. I never thought of that before.
I think I was in my notes when I heard that because I didn't remember that, and now you repeating that, I was, race car is the same.
Jason encourages him to open the box, and when he does, he finds 2 wooden blocks inside with wooden play blocks with animals on each side. So he points out that one of the blocks is a fish and has big lips. And Jason mentions that's his favorite, and he tells Brendan to kiss it. And Brendan does. I made a note here, and it's funny because Adele pointed this out last night when we were watching it. She's like, it looks like somebody was already kissing up on those.
Oh yeah, there was
those fish lips.
There was a definite wet spot on that block.
So considering he tells Brendan that one's his favorite, he encourages him to kiss it.
And then doesn't he say, oh, you didn't have to do that?
Yeah.
To absolve himself of guilt.
Yeah.
You didn't.
Because you know he'd be smooching that fish block.
Dang.
This scene with Brendan and Jason trying to talk to each other, that hard conversation with your friend about your friendship is always such a touchy thing. So when Brendan was like, nah, never mind, like towards the end of it, it's such a hard thing to do. And I was very grateful to see Brendan like, okay, we have to talk about this. And then didn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. You're right. Brendan kind of folds and he's like, okay, I'll see what I can do about the script. Jason is like, no, you don't have to do that. And at one point, Brendan like even holds his hands up to be like, oh, I'll expand it a little bit. And Jason kind of like pushes his hands out even more to be like bigger. And simultaneously be like, well, if that's how you feel.
Yeah. So This is the side of Jason that I'm having an issue. Because being gross is one thing on a physical sense, but being a gross person, I think, is worse.
Yeah.
So I just want everyone to know my grade for Jason is very much on like how
I think whatever grade you give him today is justified.
Okay, cool. As long as I don't want to get any backlash, because I think it was last episode I gave him an A for the first time.
Yeah, you did.
There was no backlash there. I was like, yeah, hell yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's backlash from me. I was
No. Jason was great in that episode.
Should I have given him the A?
None of us are perfect.
So this next scene starts with Brendan walking up to Coach McGurk.
Brendan, you're late.
Sorry, Coach McGurk. I had to stay after because I flunked a test.
You look terrible.
Well, I haven't been sleeping very well, and, I got a phone call at 4 o'clock this morning because...
Wait a minute. Always late, flunking tests, tired, phone calls at 4 in the morning.
Yeah.
Brendan.
Yeah.
Are you trading online? Brendan?
No?
Brendan, if you are,
What?
want in. Heard it makes a lot of money.
Yeah?
No, I know. You're doing drugs, right?
Are you out of your mind,
Answer
Coach?
the question, Brendan. Are you doing drugs?
That's ridiculous. I'm not even going to justify that with an answer.
Humor me.
All right. A farmer and his 3 beautiful daughters go to the village.
Heard it. Look, Brendan, I'm going to keep a close eye on you for your own good. But right now, because you were late, everyone voted you to be the first one to take Mr. Freckles down the other end of the field to do his business.
The janitor?
Mr. Freckles, not Mr. Fitzgerald.
Oh.
There's Mr. Freckles.
Oh. Okay, I'll take him. Hello, how are you? Hi, Mr. Freckles.
And here, take these 2 bags and clean up after him.
Why are you handing me 2 bags?
One's for number 1, one's for number 2. And you gotta help him go. He's really old.
I have a question.
Yes.
The joke that he was about to tell, and he's like, I've heard it already. Do you guys know what he was talking about?
I have no idea.
I'm not positive. No.
Oh,
No.
I just wanted to know how the joke ends.
Yeah, I was going to say.
I'm gonna guess if it's a farmer and his 3 daughters, probably not. Well, I'm sure there's some weird misogyny in there somewhere.
There was an old farmer who sat on the rock.
What?
Do you not know that
No.
old? There was an old farmer who sat on a rock, his hand in a fist, just shaking his marbles, and so like the entire song they just change up it's like you're going to a rhyme where it's dirty, but then they don't rhyme at all.
That sounds vaguely familiar now
Yeah.
that you did that. Yep.
But now I cannot remember for the life of me what that was, because I used to watch it on repeat thinking it was so funny. And she pulled up her skirt and showed you her ruffles and feathers.
Yes. That all
I've
sounds
heard
so
other
familiar.
songs like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Also with Mr. Freckle, like the whole episode, I was like looking for someone to doodle. I was like, I need someone to doodle. And then there's no one. And then they showed Mr. Freckles, and I was like, bingo. There he is. Just stay on scene for at least 20 minutes, please.
20 minutes.
He had so many wrinkles and like had so many like I just saw that he has 3 whiskers and the long tongue. That was a weird character design.
I must say, because Tim posted your doodles, they're good. Those are good doodles.
I will quit my job now. No, but thank you so much. I appreciate that, because I don't know. I just enjoy the little doodles, but now it's like a must every time. It's like, where's the doodle? I can't just do Eric again.
Yeah, because the next scene, the restaurant scene, when they pulled back and showed who was sitting in the restaurant, there's some gnarly animations of these people.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know if I could draw that.
Look at the background of that guy who's just like football head and just like
It's Arnold.
put a mustache over his.
That guy's, they didn't even need to fully animate the other dude in the back because it's mostly newspaper covering his face.
Oh, that's true.
So, well, this is the scene. It's the next scene. Paula and Eric are at it looks like a little diner. The server asks to take their order, and Paula orders a Bloody Mary and a Cobb salad. And classic Eric joke. He says, a little early for a Cobb salad. Huh?
He looks so nervous in this scene that I thought I thought this scene was gonna be him talking to Paula about her alcoholism, because he got so surprised when she ordered a Bloody Mary. He's like, "Well, slow down here."
He does crack that joke, like, pretty early for a Cobb salad. He's like, but no, really, it's 1:30 in the afternoon. she tells, it's a little stress reliever. And Eric's like, say no more. I wish I would take advantage of the fact that I am old enough to drink. He goes on to tell her that he's got a couple of interviews lined up. And Paula, after drinking your Bloody Mary and has a little Bloody Mary mustache, thanks him. And he tells her no guarantees. And she says, yeah, of course. And Eric's like, no, that's the first place you're going to interview. It's called No Guarantees. Online mortgage company. And Paula says she doesn't know anything about online mortgages. And he's like, that's their motto. So Paula says, that's strange. And Eric's like, nope, that's next week. She's like, I'll drink to that. And he's like, and that's the following week. And he throws his head back in laughter at his own jokes.
I'd like to see his actual score that he's been keeping, clearly. Another one on the board.
So after that, we are at soccer practice. And coach is giving some players a pep talk, saying they need to stay in their positions. He equates it to a hospital room where everyone has a job to do. He makes an offhanded comment about some doctors are comedians because they ask, well, sir, how did you get it caught on your... And that's when Brendan walks up and he's like, Brendan, you're late. Brendan apologizes. Coach tells the rest of the team to go ahead and take laps and Brendan to come sit by him and Mr. Freckles. Coach tells him he knows that Brendan's got something going on. And again, Brendan denies it. So he tells him to sit down. He's going to tell him a story about himself. And I love this. Coach was like, when I was in college, went through some weird times. And Brendan's like, you were in college? And he's like, a couple days I was. And he tells them that, yeah, when he was in college, he ran with a gang called the Feel Goods.
I should probably write that. Should we be keeping track of McGurk's backstory? Because he was raised by a pizza family. And
Yeah, Greek pizza family.
I will say part of the reason I do mention the Feel Goods is there is a reference to the Feel Goods in a later episode.
What?
Not a huge one too. It's an almost blink and you miss it one. So
okay.
And he tells him we weren't the toughest gang, Brendan. It was more like hanging around a cast of a Broadway musical. A lot of dancing, beads, makeup. In other words, drugs. So Brendan tells him again, I am not on drugs. And Coach tells him denial's the first sign that you have a problem. And Brendan pushes back and says that actually denial is the first sign you don't have a problem. That's why you're denying it.
That's fair.
Yeah. And Coach is like, that's not how this works, Brendan. You're not going to trick me with your logic.
Oh, the amount of times I've had conversations like that.
You're not going to trick me with your logic and facts.
Your fancy college boy talkings.
He tells Brendan you're not going to trick him with his logic. And if he denies doing it, that means he's doing it. And Brendan says kind of like, he who smelt it dealt it. And that's when Coach is like, I don't know from poetry, Brendan. I love that line. But if you're doing drugs, you're doing drugs. And that's bad. Again, Brendan says he is not doing drugs. And Coach responds to it, well, yeah, you're doing this. And he drops the bag in front of Brendan so he can take Mr. Freckles.
And then he gives him more drugs. It's like when in the old days when they catch you smoking, so they make you smoke a whole pack.
Yep. The whole pack.
I caught you snorting coke, so they give you. You're gonna get this whole pile.
I have a joke about that, about getting caught smoking weed and my dad making me smoke all my weed with him.
Classic.
This next scene, we are at the Smalls basement. Brendan is handing out the updated scripts. He says they need to do a quick read through. So it starts with Melissa's character saying, goodbye, and walking away. Jason enters the scene and asks Brendan what happened to his date. That wasn't my date. That was my parole officer. And she's getting married and moving to Spain and having a baby. And that's when Jason's character asks him, well, do you want to rob a bank? Kind of setting up a buddy comedy. So Melissa clocks it immediately and she yells cut. She's like, Brendan, what's going on? She asks him, are you writing me out of the movie? And Brendan is like, yeah. The answer to your first question is yes. And the rest of your questions is yes.
That's so fucked up.
It shows Jason. He is delighted.
He's got an evil little grin on his face.
He's laughing at her.
He
Yeah.
did start
What a
laughing.
dick.
He was laughing at Melissa's pain.
They both did Melissa dirty.
I don't know about you, but as somebody who has that innate fear of am I the friend at the bottom of the ladder of hierarchy, is if anyone leaves, the third person on a sidewalk who has to walk in the back.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's always a fun feeling.
Yeah, it really fucking is. So when they're like, yeah, let's just get Melissa. Oh, I felt that. I felt
Yeah.
that in my bones.
Especially since the original script, it still had Jason in it. He still had lines. He still had a character. And so to retaliate, they just take Melissa out altogether. She has one line, says bye. Ew.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, that's when Jason mentions to Brendan, hey, I think you left your swimming trunks over at my house the other day.
Which was a thong Speedo.
Yep.
Sorry, continue with the scene.
Melissa puts two and two together, and she's like, okay, we'll see about this, Brendan Small, and storms off. And that's when Brendan tells Jason, those aren't my swim trunks. And Jason's like, oh, these are my dad's.
And that's actually not true, because earlier in the show, when he had the tan lines on under his swim trunks, those are his. Those are his because he has a tan line that shows underneath.
And it was a thong tan
Yes.
line. Oh my goodness.
He's been wearing them the whole time.
Dang. He's been wearing his dad's Speedo. That's crazy, dude. I would never have clocked that.
Well,
When they showed me that butt crack, I looked.
You're like, what kind of underwear would form this tan line?
well, speaking of pacing of these episodes in season 2, the very next scene is Brendan walking up to his front door, keys in hand. The door opens before he gets to it, and it's Paula and Melissa. Paula is thanking Melissa for the cookies, and Melissa is just being as sweet as pie.
Yep.
She even calls Brendan's mom Paula.
I was so proud of Melissa for
Yeah.
this.
Good for her.
Paula tells Melissa to stop by any time. So Brendan stops Melissa, and he's like, calling my mom by her first name, and Melissa, very cheeky, is like, yep, that's her name. And Brendan even says, you went over my head, and she's like, can't wait to see the new script. Gives him a little wink.
Dude, I love this so much. Because Melissa could have just gone home and said, fuck you guys, I'm not dealing with it.
Absolutely.
She did something about it.
Yep.
And I got to give her a gold star for that.
Yeah.
Good on you.
And immediately, I mean, it's almost like she walked out of the last scene directly into Paula. Mm-hmm. And that's when Paula tells Brendan that, hey, we need to have a little chat. Brendan's like, yeah, I think we do. So again, pacing the next scene, it's Paula and Brendan sitting at the table eating Melissa's cookies. Brendan makes a comment about these have to be store-bought. Paula insists, nope, Melissa said she made them. Did you see?
They were shaped like gnomes.
The cookies were shaped like gnomes.
I didn't notice them. I was like, those don't look like fucking cookies. This is weird bacon.
Those are some
no,
pointy
they are
cookies.
gnome-shaped cookies. And I will say real quick, too, I forgot to mention this, but when Jason calls Brendan at 4 a.m, and it pans to him on the floor for like a split second, it shows the gnome on his bed.
Oh yeah.
So this is we got a 2-gnomer on our hands. This is a 2-gnome episode.
What if we don't have a gnome in an episode? Will that be?
I think we've had episodes with no gnomes.
Yeah.
So is that a misnomer?
Miss.
I want you to, the audience, Tim shook his head and then looked away.
No, it's that joke was completely fine. It's just, it was good. It took me to a place. There's a handful of comedians that it's like the terrible dad joke. Yeah, go ahead, jot it down on your invisible scoreboard.
Yeah. Now, if Eric said that joke, Tim would have been laughing.
Oh, I would have
That'd be
thrown my head back in
That would have been an old
laughter.
Timmy Blaze crack 'em up.
So Paula tells Brendan not to worry about the whole Jason and Melissa drama, to rise above it. But that being said, it would be very helpful to Paula if he were to write Melissa back into the movie. She would consider it a favor to Eric for helping find the new job, and a cheap one. Brendan agrees to write Melissa back into the movie, but insists there is no way she made those cookies.
Why not? She's a talented lady.
With the gnomes, she knew.
So the very next scene, we're back in the basement, aka studio, and Jason is like, I'm the stupid waiter again. This is the same as before. And Brendan corrects him. He's like, no, actually, you have fewer lines this time.
Jason has a really good line in this scene that made me laugh really hard.
When he tells him to get the blocks.
No.
No, he's like, but the block. Oh, I know what you're talking about. So Jason tells him, like, but the blocks, don't the blocks mean anything to you? And then he demands that Brendan give the blocks back. And Brendan tells him, like, hey, look, I don't want to make this any harder on you. And Jason is like, no, I'm trying to make it hard on you.
Yeah, that was the good line.
That was brilliant.
That shows who Jason really is.
Yeah, Jason lost aura points in this episode.
Yeah.
For sure.
Negative aura.
Yup.
So we're back at soccer practice. Coach is holding up a cup, and Brendan asks him if he wants him to pee in that cup right then and there. And Coach is like, no, you'll pee in it after I finish my coffee. So at this point, Mr. Freckles takes off and starts running around the field. And the kids are chasing him. And Brendan and Coach are both yelling, like, Mr. Freckles, come on, come here. And that's when Coach is like, come here, girl. Come on, girl. And Brendan is like, Mr. Freckles is a girl? And Coach tells everyone to bring it in. And they need to practice. So the next scene, Paula's at an interview. The interviewer starts and tells her, nice resume. And Paula says, thanks, I used a nice paper. I think it's called resume paper. And the interview asks if she has any direct experience with Visual Basics, ASP, SQL, VMF.
I loved that when she was asking these questions, just the visual representation of Paula being deflated was her just sinking lower in the chair.
Yeah, she accidentally lowers her chair and admits that she should not have adjusted the chair by herself.
I feel like Paula has ADHD. We've talked about this before, but I feel like she is like this proves it.
Oh, yeah.
She can't lie to an employer about the things that she can accomplish, and she's playing around with the seat and lowering it, going back and forth.
Oh, and I love it because the interviewer asked her, do you consider yourself a self-motivated person? And Paula's like, no. I mean, yes. And then she's like, well, not at this very second. And then I love this line. She's like, do you have anything that's already motivated and I can just kind of step into? And that's when the interviewer draws a huge X on her resume and asks her if she wants her to validate her parking. We're back at practice, and Brendan is reprimanding Mr. Freckles, or I guess Mrs. Freckles?
Or Miss.
Ms. Brendan tells her she's not supposed to run away like that. Brendan walks up to Coach, and McGurk is like, Brendan, druggie. Tie up Mr. Freckles and get out on the field. And that's when Melissa and the other kids point out that Mr. Freckles went number 2 all over the soccer field. Melissa says it smells bad and she thinks Mr. Freckles is sick or something. There's like one kid in the background that just, his animation is him sliding on one foot just clear across the field.
The thing that bothered me this episode is, where does Mr. Freckles come from? He's just a random dog that showed up one day. Is it McGurk's dog? Is it?
Yeah, if it's not McGurk's dog, it seems like he is taking care of it. I don't know.
Yeah, I felt like there was a plot hole there that didn't get addressed.
Yeah.
Do we see Mr. Freckles ever again?
God, I don't think so.
Do you know what happened to Mr. Freckles?
The same thing that happened to Thurman Thackeray and
Yeah.
the guy in the pickup truck.
They were erased.
So we see Eric, he's showing a house that's in the process of being built and simultaneously talking on the phone to Paula. So Paula expresses that she doesn't want to lie in interviews, and Eric tells her it's okay to embellish a little bit. He puts Paula on hold to explain Mrs. Stone, who is standing in a hole in the floor, that in a perfect world, that's where the toilet would be.
Mr. and Mrs. Stone are unhinged. Like, they are all over this house that's not even done being built. She's in a hole. He's climbing on stuff.
I love at one point it shows Eric talking to Paula and Mr. Stone's just standing there. And then the next time it shows he starts like bouncing around with like his arms on his head. Like,
what is up with this couple? Do
Yeah.
we see them again in the future?
I don't think so.
Well, one of them died in this episode, so
Well, yeah, Mr.
Oh, yeah.
Stone did not.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
I thought that was going to be a dark turn for Eric. He loses everything. He loses his house, his business,
Oh, God, no. Not
charged with
Eric.
manslaughter. The way that this couple were bouncing around it was like Josie in the first episode. They're just like all over the place.
Eric tells Paula the next interview to just lay it on real thick. And Paula admits that she's afraid bad things might happen if she lies. So that's when Eric tells Mr. Stone not to lean on the railing because it's not secure. When we cut to Mr. Stone, he's not leaning on the railing. He is straight laying down across the railing, which breaks and then causes him to fall. Eric tells Paula, hey, I got to call you back. And he attends to Mr. Stone, tells him not to move, and then is like, you're doing a very good job of not moving, Mr. Stone.
Rest in peace, Mr. Stone.
So this next scene, it's the end of soccer practice, and Coach has one last thing he wants to say before they go home. And this scene, we are just going to play it now.
Before you go home, everybody listen up. Soccer's a hard game, but life is a harder game. Sometimes people do things and take the shortcut to try and make life easier. Brendan Small is a drug addict. This is your intervention, Brendan.
Are you out of your mind?
I don't exactly know how these things go, so you guys handle it. Let's get him back on track. Everybody intervene.
Intervene, go ahead.
Brendan should stop doing drugs, right? Everybody?
Look,
What are you staring at me for? All right, you know what? Intervention over. Brendan, get off the drugs.
I love that Melissa is there front and center, and she doesn't even like question. She doesn't say a word.
No.
Now she's mad at him.
Mad at Brendan.
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
So she's like, stay on the drugs.
Yeah.
Let's see if I care. I love that, like, at the end of that, McGurk's just like in a...
He's pouting.
Yeah.
Well, there's another quick scene afterwards. So Coach is sitting on the bench looking very defeated, and Brendan is like almost reprimanding him, telling him like, of all the ridiculous harebrained schemes, I just haven't been sleeping well. And Coach says he doesn't get it. He tries to do an intervention and no one believes him. He tells Brendan that, yeah, drugs are not the issue here. Leadership is the issue. He's like, I read a pamphlet. I have no idea how to give an intervention. So that did not go well. So who has egg on their face? Brendan or Coach McGurk? Any of it, Brendan is like, well, yeah, you look ridiculous. The point was he wanted to get the kids motivated, and to do so, he tells them that Brendan has a little drug addiction. So what?
I do not understand his logic on this.
It does not
whatsoever.
make any sense at all.
I am so confused why he's so upset by the fact that no one believed him.
Right. And the fact that he had to do the long con and tried to convince Brendan that he was a drug addict over multiple days.
Yeah.
That was my favorite line when he's like, Brendan Small is a drug addict. And Brendan's like, are you out of your mind? It was so real. It's such a real... If someone randomly just like accused me of being a drug addict, like that is the hardest someone could say to me. And just, who are you? What the
Right.
fuck are you doing?
And let's remember, these are 8-year-olds. So you're
Yeah.
accusing an 8-year-old of being a drug addict. This is your way of... there are way more efficient ways to motivate a team.
Yeah. It made absolutely no sense.
What is he complaining about too? Like I just don't like. Oh, they didn't believe me. It's
Yeah. Oh, why didn't this
Yeah,
work?
'cause
That
you
I
were
told a
lying, dude.
group that this 8-year-old is addicted to drugs. Yeah, Coach was off on this one. So we're
He's
at
usually spot on with everything
yeah,
he says.
exactly. Men are like women. So we're at the penultimate scene. That's the second to last. We're back in the dating movie. We only see a part of Melissa and a sleeved blue hand. Melissa is asking what the chicken thinks about her. That's when we pull back to reveal that the guy in blue is actually Jason. So I did make a note. I think this is a very important scene because it shows up Brendan's ability to compromise with Jason and Melissa kind of butting heads.
Yeah.
The solution was kind of there the whole time. Just give Jason the lead role. Put your ego aside.
I disagree because this was my note about like the chemistry because Jason and Melissa have none.
Oh, I don't agree with that.
But just like during the scene, their characters, because the first scene of like Brendan's character and Melissa's character like just being very flirty with each other, like oh, the eyebrows going, and then Melissa's talking here and saying the same chemistry lines, and then Jason's like, well, the chicken is, well, if I put the
It
rubber...
doesn't hit the same.
It doesn't hit
No.
the... So I agree he is good at being a friend and like, oh yeah, I'll just give it to Jason. But
He chose friends over making movies.
exactly, which is the antithesis of what Jason believes in. And you know what the public are going to say? They're the real victims because they're going to see the product and the product isn't there.
Right.
I butchered that line, but still,
No, I got you.
I don't think so. Did you say it wrong?
I think I might have said it wrong, but
No,
I
I
can't
think
remember.
so. I think you got it.
fully understood what you were trying to say, though. So
Yes.
Well, there's a point too where Jason, she says, I need to know how this chicken feels about me first. And Jason, you hear him and Melissa like interrupts him, but he's like, I think this chicken would be happy to see your mouth and big teeth chomping down on his tender, juicy. And he says thigh, but Melissa starts talking like 5 words before the end of the sentence.
I didn't pick up on that at all.
Neither did I.
Yeah.
Holy shit, Jason.
Because it's a chicken. They're eating chicken. Like it's
Right, but let me just say my piece. When Brendan was in this role, yeah, he was flirty, but he was very respectful about the flirting. He's like, oh, I need you to chew down on this juicy piece of meat over here, lady. It's like, bro, this is clearly a first blind date. You're not getting a second one. If it's up to me.
She says that she likes the chicken and would have it again soon. So
That's because she didn't hear the last part of the sentence.
She started talking. If only she knew. Melissa, wait.
That's when Brendan comes in as the waiter to offer some more water. And Jason's character immediately gets in the waiter's face and is like, I asked for water 20 minutes ago.
See, now he's rude to waitstaff. Red flag, dude.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
What if Melissa's character is into it?
Well, she's misinformed.
Melissa
She's got to go through a few stinkers first.
Melissa suggests they leave without paying, and Jason suggests after that they should rob a bank. And they both laugh. So now we're at the final scene. Paula is in a job interview. The interviewer admits that he is blown away by Paula's resume. Visual Basics, AFP, FQL, VMS, SOB, SYP, BVD.
DVD?
DVD, you did them all.
CBT.
He's like, some of these I'm not even familiar with.
IUD?
PCP. He's like, that's it. You're going to be our protocol engineer supervisor of the electronic design of our mammalian genetics research team. And that's when we cut to Paula in a very intricate laboratory. She's looking through a window. There are two men in hazmat suits and a man and a monkey hooked up together in chairs.
This looks scary. Are they like swapping brains?
It seems like it's doing one of those like mind swap type things in sci-fi.
It was like an episode of Stranger Things. Looking through the window and they're in like hazmat suits.
Yeah.
So Paula nervously explains that there's been a terrible mistake and she was just kidding.
JK.
Yeah. She said, I don't even know the first thing about being whatever you just hired me to be. So she's like, I'm going to leave now. And then quickly asks on her way out if she will still get paid for the day. And then says, okay, bye. And that is season 2, episode 4, Business and Pleasure. Thoughts?
I don't want to know the titles
Right.
before we watch it because I want to know where we're going as far as the story goes. You said at the end when you were like, this is business and pleasure. I saw a lot of business. That's what I was going on. So when I was in there, I was like, what is the name of the title? And when Melissa and Jason were manipulating Brendan in order to get the part, I was like, maybe the episode title should be called Game of Thrones, the way that they were just going behind the backs and talking to the mom and whatever. And then my other idea is, what is happening? Like, there were so many random things just thrown into the plot. Like, Paula's trying to find a job still, Eric's trying to help her out, and then McGurk accuses Brendan of being on drugs because he flunked a test and was late a few times. And I was just like, what is happening here?
No, this episode was very much so all over the place.
Yeah.
And it did that other like 3 plot point things again, where I was focusing on like 3 different things.
I think that's going to be a very common thing. So I don't know if it's something that you like take issue with particularly.
Not really, but like when it doesn't hit, it doesn't hit. That's my only thing.
Yeah.
I feel that. Did we want to give grades, or are we still chatting about the overall episode?
No, we can do grades. Do we want to do Jason grade first or episode grade first?
Let's do Jason grade first.
Okay, well, let me just...
Did you just crack your shoulder blades?
Yeah, I need to go to the hospital.
Is this coming? No, it was last episode that Jason got an A, right?
Yeah.
It was a hiatus.
Let's keep that in mind.
I actually have been thinking about that ever since, because I was like, is it too early for me to have given Jason an A?
No, I think that was an appropriate
It was a good episode.
A episode for Jason.
Yeah.
We liked that episode a lot.
Although I did mention this to Tim the other day, I was like, I am surprised that you gave him an A so early on.
I'm trying to be as absolutely unbiased as I can and just be... But the thing is, an A+, how do you get an A+?
I don't know.
You got to make me actually like you. Like, you have to, in order to get that plus, you got to do something that isn't just funny, isn't just redeeming, but is something that makes me actually enjoy your presence on screen, Jason.
He's got to touch your soul and make you cry.
Exactly. And so I want to keep that in mind there before I go into my grade of what I was actually... I had a different grade at the beginning of this episode after we watched it, and then going through everything that happened throughout this episode, I had a different one for him, and I was just, the more and more I thought about it, and the more and more I really just cannot stand the way that he manipulated Brendan in order to make his other friend hurt.
Yeah.
And then how it made Melissa feel, no, I don't like it, Jason. I don't care what type of good creative titles that you had for movies and how many funny jokes that you threw at the screen. I didn't like it. You get an F.
Dang.
I think that's fair. I think he was a not so good of a friend in this episode. And bad friends get Fs.
Yes. Yeah.
His motivation this episode, I really felt for him. I think we've all had those friendships where you do question, even after you make some maybe like bad judgment calls, like you're kind of like, you hate me? Are we still friends? Like Jason was really going to call his house at 4:00 in the morning means it was bugging him that much that he made a call about it. Does that justify his manipulation? I really don't think it does. It just makes him kind of feel bad for it, but the manipulation was, he knew those weren't Brendan's swim trunks.
Right.
He
Absolutely.
pulled those out at the opportune time.
Yeah.
To really kind of drive it in on Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you could argue Melissa, yeah, she went above Brendan and talked to Paula and stuff like that, but was she as manipulative? Was her intent really to fuck over Jason, or was to just get back what was originally hers?
Right.
I don't think you can fault Melissa as much as you fault Jason. I think Melissa's actions were very reactionary, where Jason's were very deliberate.
Calculated.
Yes.
And on top of that, like when Brendan was going to do the friend thing that you should do is you always have to have those hard conversations about your friendship. Like, here's the line, you did this, in order to move forward, we got to do this. So Brendan was going to do the thing, but he let Jason get to him as far as feeling bad. Because I wrote it down here. I feel bad for Jason, parentheses, which is a sign of his manipulation. Good
point. Good point.
And just the hitting his head. And, like, I've been there. We've all been insecure in our own friendships.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And that's why having the conversation is so important.
Absolutely.
But
It's the way you go about it.
Especially when he was laughing at Melissa and be like, oh, here's your swimming shorts.
Yeah. His evil little giggle in the background.
Yeah.
Yes.
What would we give this episode overall?
If you guys want to go first for that one.
Do you want to go first?
If you want to go first, you can go first.
I'm just going to say this because I am probably the most obsessed one with the show here. You know, this show means so much to me. You guys know that I have at least 2 or 3 like S tier episodes in my back pocket that I just cannot wait to share and talk to you guys about.
And this is one of them.
This is not one of them. I would say of every episode of Home Movies we watched so far, giving season 1 kind of a little more leeway because it is season 1.
Right.
This is probably one of my least favorite episodes.
Yeah.
The ABC plots were like, what is Coach doing? We got some Eric time, which was nice, but Paula's trying to figure it out. Brendan's kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. It's, I don't know. It just didn't hit right for me. I would give this episode a C.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this is a C episode in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I gave the first episode of this season a C, mainly because we never got the closure that we deserved.
Right.
But because of this episode, where, like, I wrote down 3 plot points. Where's everything going? Everything just seems kind of thrown around. Like, Mr. Freckles is the perfect, like, theme of that. Like, where'd you come from, Mr. Freckles? And it's so random. And then McGurk's sad that no one believed, like, for no reason.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly was lying, and he can't get upset that nobody believes your lie.
Then it ended on Paula like, I'm out of here. Like, there's no really congealing of any of the plot except for Brendan just allowing Jason to take the main character spot. So I like the time we spend. I didn't like this episode. I gave it a C-.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I actually agree with you. I'm also going to give it a C-. There is a common theme that Paula is lying to get a job. McGurk is lying to... I don't know why McGurk is lying. He's just lying that an 8-year-old is doing drugs. And then Jason is essentially being manipulative, and I don't know if he necessarily lied. He lied about the underwear, I guess the swim trunks.
Oh, that's true.
So they're all, I guess the theme of this episode is lying. I don't know, but it didn't land like it should. There was way too many like plot holes all over the place. So yeah, I was going to give it a C- too, because like, we all know that this show is better than this episode.
Oh, absolutely.
We're not mad. We're just disappointed.
Yeah. We're just your 3 disappointed parents.
Yeah. And I'm just doing a quick little cruise here, looking through some past grades. This is probably the lowest graded episode we've done so far.
Yeah.
And I was going to give it something lower, but I enjoyed
it. Had its
humor.
moments. It had its moments.
We were laughing. We were yucking it up.
Yeah, I enjoyed those moments, but I wanted more. Specifically, the end. An ending has to button it up, and there's been episodes where they don't button it up well. It's usually when McGurk's on screen. It's like, this is incredible, and so save some for me. Like, but this ending was a good scene, but it shouldn't have been the ending. I don't know.
Yeah.
It left me wanting more.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, audience members, how do you feel? Do you think that this is right for us to have given this the lowest grade so far, or are we missing something here? I don't know. I think we're on to say if all three of us, including me, who is obsessed with this show, are right around the C minus area. I don't know. I think that might be something to that.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can let us know, rhmpod@gmail.com. Anything else before, or is that pretty much it for this episode?
Melissa did nothing wrong. She was just getting back what she deserved.
Yep. And she bought some bomb-ass cookies.
Bought or made?
Well, we don't know. She brought... Edit so it says I said brought.
No.
You don't make that call. And that's your call.
That's your call, little girl.
That's the quote I've been using constantly is, that's your call.
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Nice. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Let's jump into those sweet, sweet plugs. All right, Marcin, why don't you go first?
I'm reaching into my bag of infinite projects here. Currently, I'm working on the sequel to my RPG podcast / audio drama. It is Puzzle Valley, is the first season. When Penny Popular's murder is recorded and sent to everyone through Snapchat, a group of teens uncover the mysteries of Puzzle Valley, the uncertainty of their future, and the secrets of those closest to them. The sequel series we're working on right now with Adele is part of it. It's a prequel set in the year 2000, and it's already looking to be one hell of a high school teen detective story. It might be too early to give away the story for that one, but as for the core of what Puzzle Valley stands for, it's about the masks other people put on us, the weight it carries, and finding the strength to take them off. Puzzle Valley means a lot to me, so if you want to listen to it, you can find it under the Eldritch Journeys banner wherever you find podcasts.
So sometimes I paint, sometimes I make things, and sometimes I post that on my Instagram, which is the Artisanal of Oddity. That is Artisanal of Oddity at www.instagram.com. And that's my plug.
And as always, this podcast is brought to you by the Happy Corner Podcast. They were nice enough to donate equipment to us so we could keep this podcast going. So we always want to give them a nice little shout out at the end. The Happy Corner Podcast streams every Sunday at 1:45 Central. And then you can get the audio version wherever you get your podcasts. That's going to do it for this episode of Rewatching Home Movies. Join us next week for Season 2, Episode 5, The Party. If you liked what you heard, check out our Linktree at Linktree/RHMpod. There you can like, follow, and subscribe, send us an email, or leave us a 5-star review. I will read 5-star reviews on the podcast. Thanks again to Dr. Adam, and check out his podcast, The Sister Wives Professor. Thanks to Shannon Conway for the refresh of our logo, and Chris Bongat for the use of our theme song. On behalf of myself, Tim, and my co-host Marcin, and Adele, thank you for rewatching home movies with us. We'll see you next week. Bye.